Hello, this is Father Bill Watson, and this is a question for our YouTube channel, Ask Father Bill. And I was asked if I believed in Marian apparitions, and I said yes. And this is our presentation on Our Lady of Lourdes. So located in the foothills of the Pyrenees mountain with a population of about 4,000 inhabitants, Lourdes was a quiet, modest country town in the mid-1800s. It was best known for the Château Fort de Lourdes, a fortified castle that rises up from a rocky hill at its center. And the town was a place people passed through on their way to further destinations in the mountains that ran along the Spanish border. On Thursday, February 11th, in the year 1858, at the age of 13, Bernadette Subaru, accompanied by her sister and a friend, went to Massabielle on the banks of the Gave River to collect deadwood for her mother. While removing her socks in order to cross the stream, she heard a noise like a gust of wind, and she looked up towards a nearby grotto and saw a lady. She described her saying, "She has the appearance of a young girl of 16 or 17. She is dressed in a white robe, girdled at the waist with a blue ribbon that flows down all around it. A yoke closes it in graceful pleats at the base of the neck. The sleeves are long and tight-fitting. She wears upon her head a veil, which is also white. This veil gives just a glimpse of her hair, then falls down to the back below her waist. Her feet are bare, but covered by the last folds of her robe, except at the point, where a yellow rose shines upon each of them. She holds on her right arm a rosary of white beads with a chain of gold shining like two roses on her feet. The beautiful lady smiled at Bernadette and asked her to say her rosary. Bernadette said her prayers, and when she was finished, she looked up and the lady had vanished. Bernadette caught up to her two companions and discovered that they were upset with her. "What have you been doing? Playing in the river while we were out here collecting wood." Bernadette told them about the vision that she had just witnessed. The girls told Bernadette that she was silly and probably just seeing things. 3 days later, Bernadette felt an inner force drawing her to that same grotto. Originally forbidden to return there by her parents, probably because of getting upset with her friends, Bernadette's mother ultimately allowed her to return to the grotto. Bernadette began to pray the rosary, and after praying the first decade, she saw the same lady appear again, and she sprinkled holy water at her, thinking that if it was a demon, she would go away. But the lady simply smiled and bowed her head. When she had finished the rosary, the lady disappeared. On Thursday, February 18th, the first time the lady spoke. After early Mass, Bernadette set out for the grotto with two women, one who carried a blessed candle and the other a pen, paper, and ink to record anything that might be said. The beautiful lady said to Bernadette, "There is no need for me to write down what I have to say to you. Will you be so kind as to come here every day for 15 days? No explicit reason was given for this request, but a definite pledge accompanied it. Though she did not promise that Bernadette would be happy in the world, the beautiful lady gave her word that happiness would be waiting in heaven." Very important point in this apparition. On Friday, February 19th, Bernadette came to the grotto accompanied by her parents and her aunt and some neighbors. She carried with her a lighted, blessed candle. Shortly after Bernadette began to pray the rosary, everyone present noticed that Bernadette's face was transfigured and illuminated, but only Bernadette received the vision. On Saturday, February 20th, the lady taught her a personal prayer, which she recited daily for the rest of her life, and we don't know what it was, because she never revealed the prayer to anyone, but she did say that she was told to always bring a blessed candle with her. This is probably the origin of pilgrims carrying candles and lighting them in front of the grotto today. At the end of the vision, Bernadette was overcome with great sadness at Mary's departure, which we can only imagine if you're so filled with joy. On Sunday, February 21st, the lady appeared to Bernadette very early in the morning and told Bernadette on the occasion to pray for sinners, which Bernadette said she never failed to do. Over 100 people were present this time, including Dr. Duzis, a prominent physician in Lourdes. He told the crowd that he could find nothing abnormal about Bernadette's physical condition, even when her mental state was trance-like. He was quoted as saying her pulse was regular, her respiration easy, and nothing indicated nervous excitement. This next little scene reminds me of the scene in the gospel where the relatives of Jesus come and try to take him away because they think he's possessed or something. So a meeting was called by the citizens of the town, and sharp differences of opinion were expressed regarding the apparitions. They expressed concern of the dangers that could accompany the gatherings of such large crowds in their small town, like them having no food or water and no place to sleep, and God knows the bandits that might come. They persuaded the local procurator, Mr. Detour, to officially forbid Bernadette to return to the grotto. Bernadette responded that she could not give her word to refrain from going to the grotto, because she had promised the beautiful lady she would do so. Detour dismissed her and discussed this matter with two local officials, and one would become a friend and perform an invaluable service by listening in at future conversations and scrupulously recording them word for word. Estrada was his name, recorded a conversation between the chief of police and Bernadette. During that meeting, a Mr. Jacomet wanted Bernadette to tell what she saw. Bernadette would only speak that thing in a local dialect. He deliberately tried to confuse Bernadette to change her account of the apparitions. When that attempt failed, the chief of police released Bernadette to the custody of her father with an admonition to take her home and to guarantee that she would no further be a disturbance to the town. But the interior call in Bernadette, which was urging her on, was stronger than any earthly admonition. On Monday, February 22nd, Bernadette returned to the grotto after school. Two policemen saw her and followed her, and so did the usual crowd. The policemen stood at respectful attention as she knelt down in her accustomed place. But as she arose, they sprang forward and asked her if she still insisted that she had seen a beautiful lady. "No, this time I saw nothing at all," she answered. She was allowed to go home, but she was taunted and threatened. People said mockingly that the beautiful lady was afraid of the police and had found some safer place to go. On Tuesday, February 23rd, surrounded by nearly 200 people, Bernadette arrived at the grotto. This time the apparition revealed to her a secret only for her alone. When Bernadette's appearance was once more transformed, the men present removed their hats and fell to their knees. She appeared to be gravely serious and listening, and then joyful, and she would occasionally bow low. At the conclusion of the vision, which lasted an hour, Bernadette moved on her knees to the rose bush and kissed the ground. On Wednesday, February 24th, with nearly 400 people in attendance, the beautiful lady gave the following message, which Bernadette repeated to the crowd: "Penance, penance, penance." Then she asked her to pray to God for sinners. "Kiss the ground," the Blessed Mother said, as an act of penance for sinners. On Thursday, February 25th, with many people present, the beautiful lady asked Bernadette to drink from the fountain and to bathe in it. But Bernadette was puzzled because there had never been a fountain at Massabielle or any kind of natural spring. She began to scratch the loose gravel off the ground, which encircled her. Bernadette said, "I only found a little muddy water, but on the fourth attempt I was able to drink. She also made me eat the bitter herbs that were found near the spring, and then the vision left and went away." Those in the crowd asked, "Do you think that she is mad doing this like that?" Bernadette replied, "It is for sinners." The next day a pool had formed and was overflowing as water dripped down over the rock. The following day the trickle had become a real stream. Of course, it was immediately said, and has been said by skeptics ever since, that the spring had always been there. The fact remains that Bernadette found the spring as a result of a direct command. On Saturday, February 27th, 800 people were present. The apparition was silent. Bernadette drank the water from the spring and carried out her usual acts of penance. On Sunday, February 28th, over 1,000 people were present at the vision. Bernadette prayed, kissed the ground, and moved on her knees as a sign of penance. She was taken to the house of the judge who threatened to put her in prison. She's creating quite an upset in the town. On Monday, March 1st, over 2,000 people assembled, and among them for the first time was a priest. In the night, a woman named Catherine from a local village went to the grotto. She had a dislocated arm and plunged it into the water of the spring. Her arm and her hand regained their movement. The church declared this to be the first miracle of Lourdes 4 years later on January 18, 1862. On Tuesday, March 2nd, the crowd became larger and larger. The lady asked Bernadette to tell the priests to build a chapel there. Bernadette spoke this to Father Paramale, the parish priest of Lourdes. He wanted to know only one thing, the lady's name. He demanded another test, to see the wild rosebush flower at the grotto in the middle of winter. Possibly he had heard of the apparition of Guadalupe. On Wednesday, March 3rd at 7 a.m., in the presence of 3,000 people, Bernadette arrived at the grotto, but the lady did not appear. After school, she heard the inner invitation of the lady, so she returned to the grotto. The lady appeared to her and repeated that she wanted a chapel built by the clergy, and additionally that she wanted people to come to this chapel in processional form. Bernadette was terribly afraid of the parish priest, Father Paramale. It had been difficult for her to go to him the first time about building a chapel, but it took a great deal of courage for her to present herself to him a second time about processions. He dismissed her curtly, ordering her to tell the beautiful lady that the pastor of Lourdes was not in the habit of dealing with mysterious strangers, and that if she wanted a chapel, if she had a right to one, she must reveal her identity. When Bernadette went back again and asked for the name, the response was a smile. On Thursday, March 4th, the ever greater crowd, over 10,000 people, including the entire military garrison in full dress uniform, knew that this was the last of the 15 days that Bernadette had promised the lady that she would be present at the grotto. As Bernadette approached the apparition site, a path was cleared for her, and the soldiers who accompanied her did so with respect. After the apparition, Bernadette told the crowd that she would continue coming to the grotto because the beautiful lady had said nothing in the form of a farewell. The crowd was disappointed and disillusioned. They had seen Bernadette transfigured with a strange radiance, but they had hoped to also share her vision, to hear the same voice that she did, and they expected that, at the very least, the rosebush would burst into a sudden miraculous bloom. On Thursday, March 25th, the lady finally revealed her name, but the wild rosebush on which she stood during the apparitions did not bloom. Bernadette recounted, she extended her arms towards the ground and then joined them as though in prayer and said, "I am the Immaculate Conception." The young visionary left and, running all the way, repeated continuously the words that she did not understand. These words troubled the brave parish priest. Bernadette was ignorant of the fact that this theological expression was assigned to the Blessed Virgin 4 years earlier in 1854 by Pope Pius IX, when he declared this a dogma of the Catholic faith. Baron Massey, a local official, ordered Bernadette to be examined by 3 more physicians. They found her to be physically and mentally sound. On Wednesday, April 7th, Bernadette brought, as she always had, a blessed light candle to the grotto. During this apparition, she unconsciously placed one of her hands over the flame of the candle. People witnessed the flame burning through her fingers. Bernadette did not even hear the cries of horror which arose from the crowd. She continued to pray for at least 15 minutes while the flame burned through her hand. She emerged quietly from prayer, unscathed. Then Dr. Dozus, who had witnessed this, took another candle and without warning touched the flame to her hand. Bernadette immediately cried out in pain. Shortly after this apparition, the prefect took matters into his own hands and ordered the grotto closed, and the rustic altar was dismantled. Several months later, on Friday, July 16th, the feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, Bernadette received the mysterious call to the grotto. but her way was blocked and closed off by a barrier. Thus she and her aunt arrived across from the grotto to the other side of the Gave River. Bernadette said, "I felt I was in front of the grotto at the same distance as before. I only saw the Blessed Virgin, and she was more beautiful than ever." This was the last apparition of the Lady to Bernadette at Lourdes. In 1866, at the age of 22, Bernadette joined the Order of the Sisters of Charity. Growing up, she suffered from bouts of asthma. She remained sickly throughout her life, but she patiently attended to her duties as an infirmarian and sacristan in the convent. She died a holy death on April 16, 1879. She was only 34 years old. Bernadette was buried on the convent grounds in Nevers, France. Her body was exhumed 30 years later on September 22, 1909, in the presence of 2 doctors, several appointed officials, and nuns from the local convent. When Bernadette's coffin was opened, there was no odor, and her body was completely untouched by the laws of nature. A second exhumation took place on April 3, 1919. The body of then declared venerable was found in the same state of preservation as 10 years earlier, except that the face was slightly discolored due to the washing it had undergone during the first exhumation. The sacred relic, Bernadette's body, was placed in a coffin of gold and glass and can be viewed to this very day in the chapel of St. Bernadette at the Mother House in Nevers, France. On the 8th of December in 1933, Pope Pius XI declared Bernadette Soubirous a saint of the Catholic Church. Since the apparitions, Lourdes has dealt with more than 7,000 cases of unexplained cures. As of today, 70 of these unexplained cures have been recognized as miraculous by the Church, the latest one being from a Sister Bernadette of France, a nun who suffered from decades of debilitating back pain. A few days after her return from Lourdes in July 2008, she felt an overwhelming sense of well-being. She stood up, removed a brace, straightened her gnarled foot that had been twisted sideways for years, and began to walk normally. Her unexplained cure was declared a miracle by the Church on February 11, 2018, just a few years ago. Another miraculous cure at Lourdes changed contemporary history in the Jesuit order. Father Pedro Arrupe, general of the Jesuits in a very difficult time in the post-Vatican II Church, was dissuaded from a career in medicine to become a Jesuit. Here's how he tells the story to young adults in a Eucharistic Congress in Europe. Quote, "The first of my Eucharistic experiences was closely connected with my vocation. The experience was that of a miracle which I saw at Lourdes during the procession of the Blessed Sacrament on the esplanade that lies in front of the Basilica. Some weeks after the death of my father, I had gone to Lourdes with my family, since we wished to spend the summer in quiet, peaceful, and spiritual surroundings. It was the middle of August. I stayed at Lourdes for a whole month, and since I was a medical student, I was able to obtain a special permission to study closely the sick who came seeking a cure. One day I was in the esplanade with my sister a little before the procession of the Blessed Sacrament. A cart pushed by a woman of middle age passed in front of us. One of my sisters exclaimed, 'Look at that poor boy in the cart.' It was a young man of around 20, all twisted and contorted by polio. His mother was reciting the rosary in a loud voice, and from time to time she would say with a sigh, 'Maria Santissima, Holy Mary, help us. Holy Mary, help us.' It was a truly moving sight, and I remembered the plea which the sick turned towards Jesus, 'Lord, cleanse me from this leprosy.' The woman hastened to take her place in the row which the bishop was to pass, carrying the Blessed Sacrament in a monstrance. The moment came when the bishop was to bless the young man with the host. He looked at the monstrance with the same faith which the paralytic mentioned in the gospel must have looked at Jesus. After the bishop had made the sign of the cross with the Blessed Sacrament, the young man rose, cured from the cart, as the crowd, filled with joy, cried out, 'Miracle, miracle.' Thanks to the special permission which I had, I was later able to assist at the medical examinations. The Lord had truly cured him. There is no need to tell you what I felt and my state of mind at that moment. I had come from the Faculty of Medicine in Madrid, where I had so many professors, some truly renowned, and so many companions who had no faith and who always ridiculed miracles. But I had been an eyewitness of a true miracle worked by Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, by that same Jesus Christ who had, during the course of his life, cured so many who were ill and paralytic. I was filled with an immense joy. I seemed to be standing by the side of Jesus, and I sensed his almighty power. The world that stood around me began to appear extremely small. I returned to Madrid. My books fell from my hands. The lessons, the experiments which had so thrilled me before now seemed so very empty. My comrades asked me, "What's happening to you this year, Pedro? You are like someone who's been stunned." Yes, I was like one stunned by that impression, which every day grew more and more disconcerting. The one thing that remained fixed in my mind and in my heart was the image of the host as it was raised in benediction, and the paralyzed body of the boy who had leapt from his cart. 3 months later, I entered the novitiate of the Society of Jesus in Loyola, Spain. Lourdes, with Guadalupe in Mexico, is one of the 2 most visited pilgrimage shrines in the Christian world. 4 to 6 million pilgrims from around the world visit the shrine each year, and it's estimated that more than 200 million pilgrims have come to Lourdes since 1860. That is in comparison to the estimated 2 million pilgrims a year that visit Mecca during Hajj. And Lourdes and Guadalupe are only 2 of 83 Marian shrines and places of prayer worldwide. Hollywood released a movie called The Song of Bernadette in 1943. The release was 10 years after Bernadette was proclaimed a saint in 1933. The movie was based on the life of Bernadette and the miracle and the visions at Lourdes. To see the contrast from today's world and values, The Song of Bernadette, about a Marian apparition, was nominated for 12 Oscars at the Academy Awards that year in 1943, and won for Jennifer Jones for Best Actress